You're listening to the Exponential Entrepreneur podcast. This is the podcast for ambitious entrepreneurs who understand that exponential business growth isn't achieved through traditional business tactics alone, but through personal development, the ultimate leverage point to scale businesses beyond conventional limits. Hosted by Erika Ferenczi, featuring lessons from the Practical, Profitable Mindset program, created by R. John Robbins, Alejandra Leibovich, Erika, and Oscar Ferenczi. And here's your host, Erika Ferenczi.
So welcome everyone to the Exponential Entrepreneur. This is Erika Ferenczi, and today we have a very special guest. Her name is Kaitlin Nares. She is the owner, founder, and managing attorney of Nares Law Group. She believes that success happens when we find a better way and we're able to share that better way with the world. How she does that is by making things simple and easy to use. Ultimately, what she brings in is an outside-the-box thinking. Kaitlin started Nares Law Group because she witnessed other law firms and time again resolving brain injury cases for shockingly low settlements. Her blood boiled because there had to be a better way of doing this and a better way to help these people who just had all of these injuries. These brain injury survivors deserved a hopeful future and the ability to live their best life possible within the circumstances. So working hand in hand with the country's top neurospecialists, Kaitlin created a 5-step process to advocate for brain injury survivors to get policy limits or more. It is a simple process that is easy for adjusters, defense attorneys, and jurors to understand. It just clicks, and they understand that these are permanent injuries that deserve just compensation. Is Kaitlin disrupting the entire personal industry by getting astronomical outcomes for brain injury survivors? You bet. She believes that with mastery and real-world results, she can change the world. Kaitlin is experienced going toe-to-toe with the nation's largest insurance companies, and these companies have chosen profit over safety, resulting in catastrophic consequences for families. Kaitlin's area of expertise includes truck wreck litigation and traumatic brain injuries. These are some of the toughest civil cases. They require a mastery of the laws, regulations, science, and medical literature. Kaitlin is a trial lawyer and willing to hold these large companies accountable. Her goal is to change laws and policies to make our communities safer. Welcome to the show, Kaitlin. It's such a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you, Erika, for having me.
Of course. Tell me a little bit of why do you care so much about these cases and why did you decide to niche on this area?
It started 14 years ago, and that was literally the day I graduated from law school. And I found myself in a very unique niche. I was helping children that were falsely confessing to crimes they didn't commit in New York City. As niche as you can get and a specialty you can get. And I just dove into brain injury science. How could someone be so manipulated to confess to crimes they didn't commit? And of course, we know adults do this well, but the fact that it was children and how vulnerable they were, that's really where we focused. So for about 6 years, my focus was on children that were coerced to confess and that they spent time imprisoned. And so we also worked to get them out of prison. And one of the pivotal accomplishments of that work was the Central Park 5 case. When that case settled, Corey, our client—
Tell us about that case because I am not familiar with the case.
Oh, goodness. Okay. So it spans my entire life. So in 1989, there was a woman, she was a financier in New York City, and she's going on a jog in Central Park. She happens to be attacked and raped that night. Separately, in another part of the park, was a group of teenagers hanging out. Of course, they wanted to combine the two and say that those were the people that did it. So they rounded up a bunch of kids that happened to be in the park that day to interview them. Our client, Corey Wise, was not in the park that day. He was just a friend sitting on a couch playing video games when they tried to get his friend to come over. And they said, hey, do you want to come with your friend and keep him company? And our client, Corey, said, sure. And he never came home. So for 14 years, he was falsely imprisoned for a crime he didn't commit. He wasn't even in the park that day. So that happened over
He
the
actually
course.
went to jail.
He actually went to
14 years.
jail. Yeah, he actually went to jail and he was incarcerated. So that spans from me being born all the way to my middle school years when he's ultimately exonerated. And then not until I become a lawyer, it does his civil case start. And ultimately, in the progression of my career, his civil case resolves. And so it really, truly spanned my entire life. It's something that was the culmination of what I did. And at the core of everything I do is this notion of how can I change the world? How can I have an impact? Sometimes to the own detriment of myself. But I've always tried to figure out how can I disrupt something and make things different. That case changed the way we looked at the way police interact. It changed laws that now we need recorded confessions. It brought news and notoriety to this issue. And so it kind of after that case was like, what's next? What can I do next? And I saw that similar pattern in brain injury cases where these people completely are overlooked. Something had to change. And it was like, what's next? So that's what I've been really focusing right now.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. You know, you're so young. I mean, I have the privilege of knowing you for a few years now. I know you are part of the Practical Profitable Mindset program, and you're also part of How to Manage a Small Law Firm as one of our clients and members. What do you think that got you to, or gets you to always be looking to disrupt the way that things are doing to find a better way? What motivates you about that?
So kind of what motivates me is also a detriment of what I think I experience. And I think a lot of leaders, if someone's a natural leader, may experience this as well. Everything I think about, everything I do, the question in my mind is, am I going to impact society? Am I going to impact change? That sometimes I'm almost outer body and you kind of forget, well, who is Kaitlin? So I'm 38. I have a resume of a 70-year-old. But you know, what have I personally accomplished? And so I've always been driven to do this. Every single thing I think about is how can I change or impact society? Any opportunity that comes my way, I'm like, you know, how is that going to impact things? I've just always been driven that way.
Do you know how this got created in you, or it's just like a natural inclination that you have?
I have a deep desire for people to be able to be independent and have autonomy and to be in control of their circumstances. And I don't know where it necessarily comes from. Maybe I just have people like connected to me where I found they didn't have their own autonomy or independence, maybe financially, being bound to somebody else, what have it be. But it's been since a pretty early age where I knew I wanted to be independent and autonomous on my own. And I have that like very big desire to have that for other people. That's where, you know, when I was told there is a pattern and practice of NYPD making children confess to crimes they didn't commit, or people with brain injuries being taken advantage of by the system, to me, it really triggers that need that I want people to have their own autonomy.
Tell us a little bit about your journey, a little bit of, you know, the difficult moments that you've encountered in the process of growing your own business, just happens to be a law firm. And how did you overcome them?
When I first started my business, it was thrust upon me. And I think it's a story that maybe many women share. I was with a law firm. There were not a lot of women attorneys. And during my maternity leave, I was essentially asked how my vacation was going and when I'm coming back. And there just clearly wasn't a space for me.
They've replaced you?
So it kind of was a thrust out situation. And I'm left kind of thinking, what am I going to do next? And again, that trigger of autonomy and independence, like there has to be a better way, a way that I can do this myself. So I began the law firm with a partner, and we ultimately became very successful. Me and my partner separated. And when we did that, of course, you have to think for yourself again. how am I going to regrow this time alone? And it's, people experience that in many ways, maybe a failed marriage or other things, but you kind of have to think, how am I going to do this alone? Independence and autonomy. How am I going to grow this alone and grow it? And so Nares Law Group is about 2 years old, and that is the law firm that is specializing in brain injury cases. And, it's been a journey for sure. A lot of ups, a lot of downs, but definitely learning from every moment.
So let me ask you something. How long were you in that other law firm with the partner?
So that was probably about 2 years.
Oh, so, okay. So 2 years with this partner, then 2 years on your own.
Mm-hmm.
Then I know you had to rebuild everything because you and I had a conversation about this a couple of years ago when you were going through in the middle of that situation and restarting. Would you be comfortable just sharing with the audience a few of your successes, whether they're financial or personal, in these last 2 years, just going at it alone with your own business?
There is a couple things that I did very well and a couple things I did very wrong. And I think this is something that anybody can relate to. So what I did really well is that I stuck to what means most to me about independence and autonomy, and the notion that the firm has to give me what I need, kind of that oxygen in the plane analogy.
Yeah.
And so
your oxygen mask first.
Yes. So I've been always very clear that this firm must produce what I need to be independent and autonomous from anybody else. No matter what is going to happen in my life, I will be independent. I will be autonomous from anybody else. And so I've been very clear about that. I've been very obsessed about numbers, obsessed about what I am taking home, because if I'm taking home what I need, then I can help other people. Too many times I see it's the reverse, and the owners of the law firm are at the sacrifice of everybody else. They're not taking what they need. So they're not performing at any elite level to help anybody else. And so I've been very, very particular on that, making sure that I'm taking home what I need from the firm so that I can benefit others. What I've done wrong is something that I think a lot of people can relate to. It is so easy to get down in the weeds and not be able to see high up. When I was purchasing the law firm from my partner, I took my eye away from being a leader, and I didn't attend to the people at my law firm. I wasn't a leader to them. I was completely distracted. And when that happened, it allowed for people at the law firm to leave together and to take clients. And this is something that I know happens at many law firms. And what I didn't do was think high up, high level, and maintain being a leader at that point. So there are many things you can do to prevent that from ever happening. And so I've had to kind of learn that lesson. But when you're down in the weeds, it's easy for anything to really take you off of your performance and take you off of the ability to understand what's going on and to think critically. Again, I had no independence and autonomy when my firm was at a really bad struggle point, when people were leaving and walking out the door. I did not have that control that I so desperately want, to feel like I can survive on my own. I don't need anybody else. I can do things on my own. I didn't have that then. And so I've had to learn a lot to get past that.
Yeah, you know what is so interesting? Like, we've talked to other people that we've interviewed in the past, and one of the consistent messages that we keep getting is that the real estate in the owner's mind is so, so important, and something that we really need to take care of or protect, and go at extreme lengths to protect it. What would you say to a person, to a business owner, that feels they don't have a choice, that feels like I have to open the emails, I have to, check the correspondence, I need to calendar the appointments, I need to do all of these things, and somehow they're justifying that is the right thing to do?
I think everyone has a choice. Everyone has complete autonomy over their own actions. It's just a matter of, are you going to do it or not? So in that moment when people were leaving my law firm and clients were leaving my law firm, I felt like I had no choice. And when you're in that negative space, an email prompting that a client has left, was the same as somebody in a dark alley trying to attack me, or a tiger or gorilla. My sympathetic nervous system couldn't understand the difference. So it was full fight or flight based on an email. I had the choice the entire time on what to do, but I was reactive to every single thing that happened. And so I think what has to happen is, unless you're really high up and thinking, then, because ultimately it's the story everyone's going to tell you in retrospect. The people that left should not have been there. They weren't good culture fits. The clients that left didn't have a connection to the firm and weren't our ideal avatar to work with anybody. So in the totality of what happened, it was a positive, and probably the biggest positive thing that could ever have happened to me. But you're just not in that space. And so I think anytime, just simple things of, when you see that email that's triggering, you just have to stop. And either there's a period of time where you walk away and address it at a later time. You have to just do little things to understand that you're in complete control of how you want to react at the moment.
Yeah, I love this idea, of having some way to remind yourself that you're not out of control. Meaning like you yourself, right? The situation might feel out of control, but within the situation that you're living in, you can choose your response. You can decide, am I going to do this or am I going to do that? I can have all of these options, and there's a real choice that exists within every experience that we go through. Has that been your experience at any other moment where you could have reacted really badly, but you really were able to get the clarity of mind to react in a better way?
Absolutely. And so it's been a process to learn how to do it, because when I first started, I had a very similar experience. This notion that life is out of control, I can't stop it, and I have no autonomy in the situation. And that experience happened, let's go back maybe 10 years prior. And 10 years prior was when I was in New York City. I was just about to start law school. I had a fiance, and I get basically a message saying, I'm not coming. We're breaking up. So I'm in a city I've never lived in my life. I don't have an apartment to live in, and I seemingly think life is over. And I was at that same spiraling situation where I couldn't pull myself out. Ultimately, I did. I graduated with honors and go on to accomplish this storied history. And it's the same story. So if people are like in this moment, like you're going to hear time and time again, like once you get out of it, like, oh, that was the best thing that could have happened, or this ended up being positive, but you're just not in it at the moment. I had every ability at that moment to make choices that were right for me, but I was reactive again. Everything was woe is me. The world's over. I'm not going to get out of bed. I'm not even going to class my first year. I'm about to get kicked out of law school. I'm so depressed. And then I turned myself around and graduate with honors at the end. And so if all of us are going to go through these moments, we can't stop it. Things are going to happen. You're going to get a random call that someone is ill in your family. You're going to get a random call that this happened or that happened. So we got to figure out a way where we can not go into this spiral despair. And I've progressed myself from that pivotal moment in New York City and this pivotal moment where people are leaving my firm and clients are leaving my firm about 2 years ago, to now being at a place when something happens, take a moment and figure out, more likely than not, this is going to be positive and good for me. So let me imagine what that possibly could be before I react. And so there's been little moments along the way, whether it's employees or client related or personal. I believe if this plays out, it's going to end up being positive because it's shown that way in my life. And if I can visualize that, then I can think through this a little bit better. And so that's just been kind of my evolution to that. Still learning, obviously, but that's how it's progressed, at least in my life.
How would you say that you've gotten this wisdom? What wisdom have you gotten through falling down and getting up and falling down and getting up? 2 or 3 things that you could share with our audience.
It's been recent, but I think the reason why it was so hard for me not to feel like I had that control was because my definition of autonomy and independence was financial related, which is great. I think a lot of people need to have control of their finances and understand it. But the piece I didn't have is autonomy and independence also means understanding who I am as a person, because each of those moments and many other moments that we haven't talked about, it's always an attack on me. This is embarrassing for me. They're leaving me. They don't like me. And if I had known who I am as a person outside of these events, the fiance left me, right? And I didn't know who I was, my own value, because I always put value in how I was changing the world. So if you said, Kaitlin, tell me about yourself, it would always be what I externally did. I accomplished this, 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 and this. And it was just never like, my name is Kaitlin. I'm a nice person. I think I'm a really good mom. I cheer people up with my smile. Like, it's just nothing about me. And I think that's what allowed these moments to really make me feel I don't have control, because it was an attack on me as a human. So I've been really
always based on whatever externally was happening to you. Mm-hmm.
Every action that has happened was for people's own reasons unrelated to me. They could have cared less about me. So I'm really trying to figure out who I am. And this is like a weird moment. I know I'm only 38, but I've accomplished so much and I still don't know who I am, right? Outside of saying I'm the kid that always got the A+, I'm a business owner, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I was a lawyer on the Central Park Vibe. It's always these labels, but never kind of about me and what I want. And I think once I tap into that and find out what am I going to do for the next half of my life or longer, I think that's going to help me transcend any of these little things that happen, because I could just say, this isn't about me. This is nothing about me. They're being ridiculous in their own way or choosing their own things. This has nothing to do with me. And I think that will just get me to the next level of it just not affecting me.
Not taking it personally.
No.
Yeah. I think that's one teaching from Don Miguel Ruiz, right? Just don't take it personally. It's not about you. That is so simple. It's so simple, but it is just so difficult to really live on a daily basis because it feels personal. So it's always helpful to remind ourselves that we might be in the situation, but most likely it's not about us. It really is not. Okay, question. How are things in the business different for you right now? I know that it's only been 2 years since you started this new law firm, but you have a significant amount of revenue and profit and an amazing amount of success. How is it different right now than the moment where you just recently left that other partnership? You had no money, or little money. You were struggling with the employees leaving. Like, that was a really difficult moment. And I remember you telling me, you know what, Erika, I was about to kind of just drop the towel. Like, I was done with this thing. And then you kind of there's like a rebirth, right? And here you are, let's say, standing at the podium on number one. Like, how did that happen? What is different?
I think at the beginning, when you're starting the business, you're in survival mode or baby infancy mode. And it's just like, I need $1 in and is inevitably $1 out with payroll. And you're just trying to kind of survive and inch your way. What happens eventually, if you focus on getting what you need from the business, then you're going to get what you need from the business. I think this is just the number one thing that people don't understand. If you require that number one you get from what you need from the business, then you will get what you need from the business. So then what do you do? And that's kind of where I am now. I was in survival mode. I was committed to making sure that financially I always get what I need. And now that I assuredly will always get what I need because that's how I operate, the next question is like, what do I want and what legacy do I leave? And that is the biggest problem I deal with now, is trying to figure out that piece, because then I will get next level on how I can grow and help other people. So I'm still thinking so small because I feel like I'm so small. I feel like I'm just a person trying to save the world here. But if I can think greater than myself, like, what legacy do I want to leave? What do I want to accomplish? Who am I? I think that will open up potential that I can't see. So right now I feel like I have this blinder on of what I'm able to accomplish, but I think there's so much more available for me. I just have to figure out what I want. I think everyone will get to that point at different times. I happened to have gotten there in 2 years and at age 38 because of this notion I needed the firm to give what I wanted. So I got there a little bit quicker than most. But at a certain point, someone's going to get to this point and you feel lost. I have never felt so lost in my life than right now, being a successful woman that has enough funds to take care of my entire family. And I feel so lost on what the next move is. And it's a weird place. It's a really weird place. It's almost like I went from baby to adulthood and then I'm back as a baby again. And so it's really now trying to figure out who am I and what legacy do I want to build. And once I know that, I'll know the path forward.
Mm-hmm. You know what is so interesting as I hear you speak? One of the things that's coming to my mind is, what if you don't have to do anything differently right now? Right? Because you've lived your whole life with this, I don't want to say fear, but this incessant need to do and achieve and change and all of these things that you were talking about, get control and get independence and get autonomy and all of this. And now you find yourself in this place where you did it. You have the autonomy, you have the independence, you've changed people's lives. You will continue to do so, but you've changed people's lives. Like you said, you have the financial means to take care of you and your family and others. Then what if for a little bit of time, maybe a few months or a year or 2 years, you could just sit and relax? You could just sit and enjoy, right? And then allow the next part of your journey, whatever that is going to be, kind of to reveal itself to you, rather than you having to push it forward, which is what you've been doing for the last, I think it's your 35, 36 years of your life, right? It's like there's one thing that I keep hearing in the back of my mind, maybe there's like a new way of being trying to be born through you in a different way. And maybe that's why you cannot see it right now where you're sitting, because you still have that old mindset. Right? And maybe that's not the answer. So is what I'm saying, is that bringing anything up for you?
I think absolutely. I've never had this ever in my entire life. I'm the person that on every vacation has the laptop and the book and is go, go, go. It is very nerve-wracking to just be at ease with oneself, because that means you have to like yourself and you have to be okay with yourself and all of that. And that's where I'm working on. I know it's something I need to do because, one, I need to allow experiences to come to me. And unless I'm open to any opportunities that can come and to understand what opportunities there are, I'm not going to be open to those things and different paths I can take. So that's one. And I do need to figure out who I am outside of these labels, right? The A+ student all the way to the successful business owner label. I need to figure out kind of who I am outside of that to understand what I ultimately want. Because it's a weird position to be in. Again, not complaining. It's a wonderful, and I'm so grateful position to be so young and to kind of have built something. It's just, I'm glad I'm going through this now. Then later in life and trying to figure out kind of who I am, maybe after a retirement at 70 years old, maybe I've lost a spouse or I'm now retired and I'm kind of like figuring out my life and who I am at like 70. So I definitely welcome the opportunity, but it's a scary one to be at.
It's definitely scary because, especially for you, being in control and independent is so important, right? I can see how something like this feels like you don't have the answers and it feels out of control. It's not out of control, but it feels out of control just because you can't push it with more effort, right? This is a moment in your life where actually not doing things is going to allow it to come to you easier than if you keep pushing and pushing and pushing, because as you keep pushing, it's just not going to be there. You know, I believe that in our lives, there's not just one defining moment. There's several of them, right? The same way that whatever happened to you in New York with that particular thing, and then whatever happened when you left the partnership, and then when your employees left, and now this, and then there's going to be others, you know. I was reading a poem by a German poet. It seems like our journey in life is to always be defeated by ever larger things. And that really got me to think about, we have this notion that if we do everything right and if we do everything well, we're always going to be happy and we're always going to be okay. But if we're always growing, it's just normal to expect to be always defeated, but by ever larger things. Maybe you can just ask yourself, who do I want to be right now within these circumstances?
Yeah.
Anyway, words of wisdom. I have 2 more questions. Number 1, please give us your information. How can people find you, meaning your URL, phone number, and exactly saying if you're a person that you or someone you know is dealing with this problem or this problem or this problem, this is the number or the URL that you should contact.
They can find me at www.nareslawgroup.com. Who would I love to talk to? Oh gosh. I want to talk to so many people that I can help, but ultimately what we want to give is a hopeful future to people. And the people that we feel like we're best able to serve at this point is anybody, either a caregiver or someone that has actually been injured at no fault of their own and sustained a brain injury or concussion. And so we will love on the caregivers as much as we can, and we'll give as much support as we can to people that are actually injured and ultimately want to get them to a hopeful future.
Very nice. Beautiful. Did you give us your phone number?
Absolutely. It's 720-637-7786 or info@Nares, Nares lawgroup.com.
Fantastic. Very good. Thank you so much. Okay. And then my last question, any last mindsets, like ways of thinking about business or entrepreneurship or life that you would like to leave our audience with?
I know I keep repeating it, and it's just the thing that is so passionate to me as I hear other entrepreneurs, which is you have to allow your business. I happen to own a law firm, but it can be any kind of business. You have to allow the business to give what you need so that you can give the most to others. And that is the biggest thing. And it's so simple to do that. You just need to know what expenses do you personally pay out in a month. Your business must supply you that and some more. And that's it. It's simple as that. And every other decision you make about who you hire or what you do is dictated by that and that alone. If you have what your needs are covered, you will be so empowered to keep growing and help others. So that's just my biggest takeaway. I know I repeat it, but it's what means most to me.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for repeating it because it's so important. It really breaks my heart when I see, and unfortunately I see it often, these business owners, whether they are lawyers or otherwise, that they are literally leaving their whole life, blood, sweat, tears, into building these enterprises, and they are just not paying themselves enough. And how much that made me kind of reflect on how much that is related to our own sense of self-worth, right? And like you said, I take my money first and then I'll figure out how to pay everyone else. And what is so interesting, I've been doing this work for over 20 years now, is like I see consistently over and over again, you guys and we are so committed to not going without paying our employees or our vendors or our rent that we will find the money. But if you don't pay yourself first, you won't find the money for you. So pay yourself first for sure.
And actually, it's easier when you think of that. If I have to pay myself first, I don't want to have the difficult conversation. That's not a bad conversation. I'll just run my payroll, right? Yeah. You're not talking to anybody. The difficult conversation is going to the employee, going to the vendor, going to everyone, and you want to avoid that. So you're more likely to be able to meet your needs, not having those difficult conversations. So I know it's just a twist of mindset, but if you pay yourself first, you will make the money you need to sustain what you need, because you're going to avoid that conversation more than just talking in your head. I think I can go without pay this month.
100%.
That's the easy conversation. So if you just make that subtle twist, it'll be just life-changing the way that you think about running the business.
Yes, 100%. And then also making, I think that transition, that mindset change from, like you said, the analogy of the airplane, right? I can't help anyone if I don't help myself first. Like if I am, Arjun, the owner of How to Manage a Small Law Firm, he's always saying this, and I love it. It's like if you're going to have, let's say, heart surgery, and you're going to go to the ER, to the not the emergency room, sorry, the OR, the operating room, would you rather to have your doctor to be a person that is making enough money, has just came back from a vacation, has a good marriage or not necessarily financial problems, and is relaxed to take care of your case? Or do you want to have the doctor that doesn't have any money, hasn't taken a vacation in 3 years, hasn't slept well, is going through a divorce, blah, 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 distracted because they have so many issues operate on your heart?
Yeah.
And obviously the answer is no. Of course, I want the person that is doing great financially and has, time to rest and recover and is completely focused on my case. And just reminding every business owner that that's who you want to be. And for that, you have to pay yourself first.
100%. And if people think that this is just this horrible, how am I ever going to be able to pull this off? It's the same amount of money. You're just paying yourself and not everyone else. I think that's just the biggest, simplest takeaway that someone can change today is the same amount of money is sitting there in that account. Let me say what goes to me first, and then let me make a plan about the rest.
Correct. 100%. Well, Kaitlin, thank you so much for your time and your generosity. I loved having you on the show. And everyone, I'm sure that they enjoy the conversation. Thank you so much. And we will see you next time.
Thank you, Erika.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to the Exponential Entrepreneur Podcast. We encourage you to take action on it today. Share what you've learned with another entrepreneur. Sign up for our newsletter to get bonus content you won't get anywhere else at exponentialentrepreneur.com, and subscribe to the Exponential Entrepreneur Podcast to receive the next episode. Until next time, keep breaking through limiting beliefs and growing exponentially.